I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the results of a federal investigation into San Diego Police Department's the factors that may have allowed officer misconduct to go undetected for years.
After conspiracy charges were dropped by a San Diego judge yesterday, former defendant Aaron Harvey joins us with his perspective on California's gang conspiracy law. I'm Peggy Pico with our conversation about gang affiliation and what's next. Then, a reading with the author of Living Without the One You Cannot Live Without. Our conversation about ways to cope with grief, especially as you age.
I had no idea all this was going to happen until this morning. I thought I died and went to heaven.
Aww.
But the truth hurts, but selective ignorance is fatal. The failure to identify and have the courage to identify what's going wrong in the organization will ultimately lead to the demise of that organization.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. A federal review of the San Diego Police Department says leadership failed to prevent and properly investigate officer misconduct. We're learning more tonight about a new report from the Department of Justice. KPBS Metro reporter Taryn Minto joins us from the newsroom with the latest. Taryn, what's the Justice Department's core finding here?
The report looked at more than a dozen cases of misconduct that happened over the last few years. Researchers didn't find one link between the cases, but they noted the department's leaders overall didn't properly or consistently react to claims of misconduct. Ronald Davis leads the DOJ's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, which conducted the review. He summarized it this way.
And I think the thing that stood out for us is the failure of leadership on small issues. It's like anything else, failure to focus on small issues lead to very big issues.
And this review has been going on for some time, Taryn. Remind us again of what prompted it.
It was requested last year by then Police Chief William Lansdowne. Over the last few years, the department has seen a series of wrongdoing by officers. Most notable was the case of Officer Anthony Arevalos, who was convicted of sexually assaulting women he pulled over. Researchers looked at 17 cases of all types of misconduct to produce this report, and it includes 40 recommendations for the department to enforce. Some of those include changes to the department's hiring process and annual training.
And what kind of reaction are we getting from the department and city leaders on this?
The city attorney, the mayor, and the police chief attended the news conference today and had a very similar reaction. They welcomed the report to help improve the city's police force. Mayor Kevin Faulconer said the city is committed to provide the time and money to make the changes suggested. And Chief Shelley Zimmerman says this is just the first step.
I want our public to know when a recommendation is implemented, this will not be the end, because we view this as the beginning.
The chief says she is already making changes, like additional training for officers and new procedures for tracking citizen complaints.
KPBS Metro reporter Taryn Minto. One day after charges were dismissed against a San Diego rapper and his friend in connection with gang-related shootings, Peggy Pico talks with one of the former defendants about his efforts to change the controversial law.
A San Diego judge dropped charges against rapper Brandon Duncan, also known as Tiny Do, and co-defendant Aaron Harvey, citing a lack of evidence. The district attorney's office accused them of benefiting from a string of shootings under a controversial gang conspiracy law. Aaron Harvey joins me now with more details. And Aaron, what were you charged with, and how did prosecutors connect you to these crimes?
I was charged with 9 separate counts of conspiracy to commit shootings. My connection, the district attorney's office says, was Facebook photos and the number of stops that I've had in my community, which were, I believe, about over 50.
You mean the number of stops when you went outside driving, just walking around?
Driving, walking around, standing in front of my grandmother's house, just hanging out, all stops in my community.
Okay. What benefit did prosecutors say you received out out of these gang shootings or being affiliated with these gang shootings?
They said my benefit is, because they have me documented as a gang member, my benefit is my stature goes up. The fear of other people outside of the community of that, and then my stature within the community rises. So, you know, I don't know how you can even measure or level stature, but that's what
I was going to ask, did your stature go up?
I didn't even know I had stature, you know, so, yeah.
Okay. District Attorney Bonnie DeManis released a statement about the dismissal of the charges yesterday. It says in part, it's unfortunate that in spite of the evidence transparently available in the court record and court rulings that clearly establish their active gang membership during the time of the shootings, the media and community has allowed itself to be manipulated by individuals who are misrepresenting their true level of gang involvement. Now, the DA's office still maintains that you are an active gang member. Are you now, or were you associated with the Lincoln Park gang?
No, I'm not a gang member. Never been a gang member. But with the district attorney's office, their narrative of what they want to say is pretty much everybody's a gang member. They have 543 people in the Lincoln Park community documented as gang members. And if the district attorney wanted to, this was his words, that he could have went and locked up 543 people and put them on this case. They say that I'm a gang member based on, again, Facebook photos. Facebook photos are what they consider to be gang signs, not signs that represent a community, not signs that represent a high school, you know. So with those, the narrative that they're portraying is that these things are gang related when the community in the high school was there way before the gang. We represent our community like the average person would represent a high school, a college, a fraternity, or a sorority.
Did you know you were in the Cal Gangs database?
No, I was documented when I was 18. I didn't know I was a documented gang member until I was 26, facing 56 years of life in prison on a $1.1 million bail.
And that was in relationship to these charges?
Yes.
You were in jail for 7 months awaiting trial. How did that change your life?
Well, besides the financial troubles that it's caused me, you know, having to break my lease on my apartment and having to afford the food and everything in jail and the phone time, but just the psychological thing. Like I still wake up at 4 o'clock every morning just waiting for the police to kick in my door. You know, I tense up when I see police officers. I feel like people are following me. You know, it's then when you're in jail and then you have to deal with the troubles that are in jail, when you're accused of doing a shooting in somebody else's neighborhood, you might become a victim while you're in jail.
A retaliation
exactly.
type of thing. Let me ask you this, though. There's people who will say, hey, look, the police might say, hey, look, we're just trying to rid neighborhoods of gangs. There are gangs in neighborhoods. They do bad things. They do violent things. So, you know, we're trying to rid the neighborhood of gangs.
Yeah, that's what their story that they tried to say. But if you want to rid the neighborhood of gangs, then go get the people who actually committed the crimes. There's nobody's charged on these crimes. I'm not against them locking up gang members, but then again, it's not illegal to be a gang member. So what they're trying to do is basically like the Minority Report. They say these are the guys who can or will commit a crime. So then you put them in prison for life.
You have some new plans now. You were studying to be a real estate agent. Now what are you going to do? I'm
going to law school. I'm actively going to be an activist in my community, and I'm going to law school. I have to. You can't fight fire with the system, but if you put yourself in a position to where now you have those type of jobs where you can make change in policy and laws, then that's where you can make the difference. So I feel it's my obligation to put myself in that position to make a difference.
Are you going to try to repeal the law?
It will be repealed. Like I've said many times, this was just round one. You know, this is just the beginning. They woke up a few sleeping giants, and we're gonna get 182.5 off the books. We're gonna repeal Proposition 21. We're gonna go after the Step Act. We're gonna go after documentation laws. You know, we're gonna go after a lot of things.
All right, Aaron Harvey, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you very much.
10 months of labor negotiations have led to an impasse in the San Diego Unified School District. KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler met with both sides in the dispute.
The school district and the union have come to an agreement on a lot, but two issues persist: pay and class size. And they're two of the most expensive issues. So first, I came here to San Diego Unified's headquarters to speak with Superintendent Cindy Martin. Martin says the district simply can't afford to pay teachers what they're asking for.
It does come down to money when you're at the very end of the negotiations, and we have mutually declared an impasse, which is simply another step in the bargaining process.
With Superintendent Cindy Martin here at district headquarters to union headquarters here in Mission Valley, San Diego Education Association President Lindsay Birmingham says pay and class size are perennial issues for a reason.
That's the biggest priority, is to have a respectable pay and benefits package for our members, but at the same time one that's competitive and can recruit and retain people here in San Diego.
Both sides want to reassure parents that they are a long way from a strike, and both sides think that the mediator could do the trick. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
It's expected to take about a month for a mediator to be chosen. In the meantime, both sides are still talking. State water regulators have approved more restrictions on how we use water, adding new limits on water use by businesses as the state drought persists into a fourth year. No more watering lawns daily, and customers must ask for water at their favorite restaurants. It's an expansion of the state's emergency drought regulations.
It's necessary because we're in the most severe drought that we or our grandparents have ever experienced, and we want our urban areas to be resilient enough to weather what could be a very dry next year or two.
Measures are designed to achieve a 20% reduction in water use. Offenders can get fined $500 per violation. Well, if you've been in downtown San Diego in the past few months, you may have noticed a lot of construction underway. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser says downtown boosters are calling it an urban renaissance.
We have probably 13 cranes in the air right now today.
Chris Michelle is head of the Downtown San Diego Partnership, a downtown advocacy nonprofit. She says that just 1,200 apartments or condo units were built downtown between 2010 and 2013. Right now, more than 6,000 units are in the pipeline, and those spaces will likely be filled. In December, San Diego's apartment vacancy rate was at just 2.3%.
We haven't seen this activity in years, and we're not the only city going through this. This is happening all over the country. There's an urban renaissance, an urban rebirth that's happening. Now what we're seeing is the development that comes from all that growth and people wanting to live, work, and play in downtown.
The number of people living downtown almost doubled between 2000 and 2013, according to San Diego's planning agency, Sandag. Michelle says a big driver of this growth is millennials.
They want to live in an urban environment. They want to be relevant. They want to make their time count. So a big house out in the suburbs with 2 cars, 3 cars, a dog, and all of that is not necessarily what millennials want, although they want the dog.
A Nielsen report last year found 62% of millennials want to live in mixed-use communities, meaning residential and business close together. John Wantz says he thinks more young people are moving downtown.
I'm originally from Carlsbad in here, and I just moved downtown too.
He's the general manager of Halcyon and Stella Public House, a coffee shop and bar at 14th and Island.
People are moving down here. I'd say most of our local clientele are younger people.
Halcyon sits on the corner of what will soon be an urban park and a major housing development. When it's finished, the Pinnacle condos will be 2 45-story towers holding 956 apartments. The idea is to mix those living spaces with retail space like Halcyon.
We are kind of a community gathering place. The law school students are here every day. A lot of the residents in the surrounding buildings are here every day. So it's already started to become that, and our hope is that it continues to build upon when the Pinnacle project opens up.
But Wantz says there are still improvements that need to be made downtown, particularly with the homeless population.
Slowly but surely, they're cleaning up this area. It's been a slow and steady process over the years. This isn't something that gets fixed overnight.
Michelle runs a program called Clean and Safe that's meant to help with that. Property owners pay a fee for things like extra trash pickup and security guards. This summer, downtown residents and businesses will vote on whether to approve the program for another 10 years. Downtown resident Rita Collier told the city council the fees are too high.
I declined to sign my petition because I believe the 27% increase increase in my assessment is too high and will set too high a baseline for future 5% per year increases over the next 10 years.
Michelle says every downtown community will decide how to spend the money they collect.
Do they want more power washing? Or do they want more doggy bags? You know, what do they want? What's important to them? And they'll tell us, and then that's the budget that we'll go with.
Many other downtown residents and business owners are on board. As Michelle was speaking to KPBS, the owner of a boxing gym called Undisputed approached. He thanked her for the Clean and Safe program and said he's happy about the new construction downtown.
So we're talking about all the growth and development that's happening in downtown.
I love it.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Death is a difficult topic many people try to avoid talking about until they're forced to. Peggy Pico looks at ways to ease grief for yourself as well as others.
We all grieve in our own way, but it's never easy. After the death of her husband of more than 35 years, retired business professor and author of 20 books wrote the poetry book, Living Without the One You Cannot Live Without, Hope and Healing After Loss. My guest, Dr. Natasha Josefowicz, a recent inductee into the San Diego County Hall of Fame, and marriage and family therapist David Peters. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Peggy.
Natasha, the books in your the poems in your book chronicle your journey from your husband's diagnosis with prostate cancer through grief and healing.
Yes.
Would you take a moment to read us your poem titled Maybe?
Yes. That's a very important poem because I think this is where everybody feels. Maybe it's all a mistake. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe it was a bad dream. Maybe it didn't happen. Maybe when I come home tonight, he'll be there saying, "Hi, how was it?" And I'll tell him all about it. Except he wasn't there, and so he didn't ask.
It's a moving poem because I think so many people can relate to it. What did you find to be the most difficult part after the loss of your husband?
Well, we were joined at the hip. We were kind of a unit, he and I together. And so this hip is bleeding. It's torn, and so it's bleeding all the time. And everywhere I go, everything I do, I'm now in an alien world. I'm in a world of couples, and I'm a single person, and I don't fit in anywhere because we would finish each other's sentences. We did everything together, and so being a kind of a half a person, half a unit, that went on for a long, long time, and that was most disconcerting.
This idea, David, of going from a we to an I, is that a common response? And is there anything you can do to prepare yourself for the loss of a loved one that is joined at the hip?
There's very little we can do to prepare except for maybe read and learn from others who are experiencing it before us. But it is a very common experience, especially for those who have been socializing as couples. When suddenly you're the single person and your friends are still in couples, the awkwardness is overwhelming. Very, very big challenge for people.
Something else, Natasha, in researching your book, you looked at adults ages 60 to 90, and you found that men and women in this age group, they grieve differently.
You know, I took this age group because this is the age group that they have lost their parents. The kids have moved away. They're not in the workforce anymore. And so they have many fewer resources. And I found something that is not in the literature. Men and women grieve very differently. I'll give you an example. A man has a friend and he says to him, someone you know has lost his wife, how would you help? And the man says, well, I would take him out for lunch and we would talk of other things. You ask a woman, you have a friend who's just lost a husband, how would you help? Oh, well, I would go there and we would bring some food and we'll talk. And so this is pervasive. I don't know if you know this, but 6% of men who have lost a wife have a higher suicide rate than the general population. By the end of a year, the men are ready with the best casserole. And
you're going to have to explain best casserole for folks.
Well, there's a casserole brigade to the men who have just recently been widowed, because as a man grows older, his pool of available females grows larger, and as a woman grows older, her pool grows smaller, and so a single man is someone that anybody wants to get together with as a companion.
Remarries faster. David, what are some of the other difficulties that people have when dealing with the loss of a loved one they've been married to for a long time or with a long time?
Well, you lose your business partner sometimes, you lose your best friend sometimes, you lose your lover sometimes. For some, your reason to live was that partner. If you were caretaking them for, say, the last 5 to 10 years, then it's even worse because you've been their right-hand person. So our roles change. Just the very silence in the home can be overwhelming. We can become disoriented in our lives and be challenged to find meaning again. But we definitely need to, work through that by connecting with other people and building other relationships.
Oh, I have to add something. He mentions meaning. I was such a mess after my husband died. I went to see a psychologist, and I said, my life has lost all meaning. And she said, well, meaning is very overrated. That really helped.
Okay, she helped you focus. Thinking of the therapist here, is there any particular sign that it's time to go see a therapist or get help because the grieving process maybe is stuck?
Well, the grieving can take easily a year with symptoms that are similar to depression. But if you find that you're losing weight, if you find that you're unable to function in ways that you must function, say at work or something like that, if you find that you're taking risky behaviors, then definitely it might be time to get some professional help.
All right, therapist David Peters and Dr. Natasha Josefowicz, thank you so much. We have a lot more resources on coping with grieving on our website, kpbs.org.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.
A former Navy corpsman aboard the USS Midway got the wish of a lifetime, a return today, a return visit 60 years later to the aircraft carrier that played a significant role in his life and those who served on it. The USS Midway was the Navy's longest-serving aircraft carrier of the 20th century. It opened as a floating museum and memorial in San Diego 11 years ago, with visitors streaming in by the thousands. And like Deja Vu, veteran Robert Mounts received a yeoman's welcome 60 years after serving sailors in the ship's sick bay.
I had no idea all this was going to happen until this morning. I thought I died and went to heaven.
It was actually the wish of a lifetime, giving this former Navy corpsman a chance to reminisce.
We were the first responders to whatever injuries might come, and then when the guys had liberty on the beach, then we were assigned to beach guard, where we would set up a tent for medical treatment.
Today, Mounts is fighting a terminal illness and came all the way from Indiana for his last tour.
When we found out he had stage 4 lung cancer and it was spreading, and so his time is limited, it's terminal. And so we looked at his bucket list and said, come on, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? And this was one of the top things that he wanted to do.
His daughter Laura got assistance from a nonprofit dedicated to helping seniors fulfill their lifelong dreams.
Wish of a Lifetime is the organization that has made this possible for us to bring Dad here today to see the ship that he was on during the Korean War.
The family took pictures and got a personal tour of the ship and its 50 years of history. Something this old sailor will remember for the rest of his life.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour, why parents and students shouldn't stress out over college admissions. A new book explains why. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
We want to clarify last night's story about Assemblymember Rocky Chavez and his U.S. Senate campaign. He's actually following in the footsteps of another Republican, Don Crampy, who's entered the Senate race in January. Sam and Blanche Weiss of San Marcos are celebrating their 81st wedding anniversary tomorrow. Reporter Deanne Goodman tells us how they've stayed in love all this time.
Sam was 18 and Blanche was 15 and a half when they laid eyes on each other at a Sweet 16 party.
Sam was at the party, and I kind of liked him, and I guess he liked me. And we played Spin the Bottle and Post Office and all those games, sexy games that they had years ago.
In 1934, Sam and Blanche Weiss tied the knot.
You were 20.
I was 20.
And I was 17 and a half. Don't forget that half.
That half. We lied our age to get a marriage license. We almost didn't get it because of We were refused without a birth certificate. We said, birth certificates, we didn't think we needed it at our age. And we made ourselves 1 year older than necessary.
Sam and Blanche say there's a secret to their long-lasting marriage.
You have to have a sense of humor. You have to look at different things and not make it so important. You could joke about it. You have to have respect for each other. You have to be able to communicate, talk when you have a problem.
Sam and Blanche say at their age, they don't think about numbers. They just focus on loving the time they have together.
No long-range plans. I don't buy green bananas. I know it's day by day, but we just enjoy.
For KPBS, I'm Deanne Goodman.
Happy anniversary, Sam and Blanche. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.